All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Interviewing Wednesdays. We're very glad you're with us today. It's March the 3rd, and today we'll be on session number 9. For those people on Zoom, we ask that you use the chat box to enter your questions. Just as soon as you think of something, put it in the chat box. For those people watching on Facebook, please just put it in the comment field. I am monitoring that feed, and I'll be sure to get those questions answered as our speakers take a break. For those on Zoom, if you're using a PC or Mac, we ask that you use the lower left-hand speaker view. And that way, where you see the red arrow is, you can adjust the proportion and make the speaker bigger or smaller with the PowerPoint, whatever is comfortable for you. Please note this event is being recorded and is currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and on the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, and if you happen to post a comment in the chat or have your microphone or camera on, you give consent for your comments, name, and picture to appear. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Back in 2008, I founded careerdfw.org to help people with their job search in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. In 2012, I launched careerusa.org after being invited to go to the White House and finding out that there really wasn't anybody else around the country doing what I was doing, with Career DFW. I've written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It's available on Amazon. Since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. That group's been around since the late 1990s. I took it over in 2007, and I'll tell you about our upcoming program at the end of this session. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team, and you'll hear more about that in just a second. We have two outstanding speakers with us who have put together this 13-part seminar or series of workshops. So gentlemen, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Jeff. And I'm Mark Mcdonald. I lead the pit crew. I've been doing that for about 8 years now, 8 complete years. I got started in the pit crew because I got laid off for the 3rd time from my career choice, which was to work in the telecommunications equipment industry. And but that kind of started going downhill in 2002 with the recession in that time. And then, the next 10 years, I got laid off 3 times. I never did find my way back to working in the telecommunications industry. And today we're going to be talking about career changing. So that's a very timely topic for many of you, I think. But when I got started with the pit crew, I found out, how valuable it is. And here's why it's valuable is we give you a chance to practice in a very realistic setting where you send in a resume and a job description. I have a group of volunteers who have all been hiring managers, and most of them are in job transition, just like you, and they study up in advance. A lot of the candidates who come through the pit crew are very surprised at how well prepared the interviewers are, and that's because we've been hiring managers. We know what it takes, and we know what it takes for you to make a good impression on us, and so we give you that opportunity in a realistic scenario, and then you get feedback afterwards. You get a video recording, and it's free. It's completely free. It takes a couple of days to set up. So the way you get involved when you're ready to practice is you send your information, the resume and the job description, to dallaspitcrew@gmail.com. And then I go to work getting the interview organized, which can happen Monday through Friday, sometimes on the weekends, during normal hours like 9 to 4 would be start times. And we get everybody lined up, and then we hold the interview as soon as we can. So that's you plus 3 interviewers for a panel interview. So that's how the pit crew works. I encourage you to link in with me as well. I have a pretty good sized network in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, although it's growing outside of the Dallas-Fort Worth area because we're starting to get more and more people be involved in these training sessions that Jeff puts on from outside of DFW. But there's my LinkedIn profile. You can search on my name, use my middle initial, that'll help. You can search on the pit crew as well, and you'll find me. And then I'm going to post up make it even easier for you, I'm going to post up the contact information for the Dallas Pit Crew and for my LinkedIn profile right there in the chat window. And then finally, besides doing the pit crew, I do one other thing. I do a little bit of coaching, and that is, and what that means is I just coach on one question. Why did you leave your last position? So if that's going to be a complicated answer for you, if you feel some anxiousness about it, then let's have a conversation. And it doesn't necessarily have to be your most recent position. I coached someone earlier this week who in 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, for about 5 years, had 4 jobs in 5 years. And so she was curious about how to explain that. And so we went over, what the reasons were and came up with a good way to cover that period with just kind of a few statements that covers that entire 5-year period. So that's the kind of thing we'll do in a coaching session about why did you leave your last job. And same way, if you want to practice, just send a request to me via email and I'll set up a time for us to have a confidential discussion about your situation. Thanks, Jeff. Walt?
Good afternoon, everyone. Walt Glass here. If they ask me why I left my last job, I say, well, I was old and I made a lot of money, so they got rid of me. But that doesn't work very well in an interview. We can't be negative about that. So yeah, if you have a less than positive situation, I hardly recommend you talk to Mark. I can also talk with you too, but he specializes in that. So what do? Well, I offer the interview success workshop. It's very, very different than the pit crew. It is not a mock interview. It's really a learning interview. And we have to start with fundamentals of differentiation, how we differentiate ourselves from other candidates, and how we sell ourselves as defined by who we are, what we do, and how we can help. I hear many, many interviews. I've done it, started back in 2000 when I flunked an interview. You had to bring your VHS tape to get videoed. But today I do it on Zoom, and you do get a recording of your video. But the idea is, what is it that we really are presenting when we present ourselves? And people don't hire us just for what we do. They don't hire us just for our background experience. They hire us for our characteristics, our character, our culture fit. In fact, it overrides the other two. If they don't like me, I can do the job. I can bring in lots of revenue. I can have a lot of value to them. But if they don't like me, I'm not getting hired. So we got to find out that culture fit, et cetera. And so how do we do that? So you will get a video of your interview. I also have a handout, and I'll give you a video that goes over the handout of some things that are strong differentiators, plus other surrounding things about interviews that can help you shorten that job search. It is free. Look me up on LinkedIn on my About page, and you'll see more details. That's my current job. And send me an email to my Yahoo address and say, I'd like to register, because you need to be registered to attend. The process is very simple. Sign up, come as you are. I mean, it is, it doesn't matter. Many people say, well, I'm not prepared. I said, well, what is your plan to get prepared? Come to the workshop. I will help you put the plan together so you can get prepared. All I need is a job description to show that you have job focus, and that we'll look at your answers relative to are they relevant to the job description. So I'd be glad to have you participate. Send me a note if you want to connect with me. Also send a little note along with it. That's a strong differentiator as to connecting, and I'd be glad to do so. So come on down. We'll do some learning without squirming.
Thank you very much. All right, well, today we'll be doing session number 9, demonstrating enthusiasm and changing careers or industries. So take it away, guys.
All right, here we go. You guys see that?
We can.
Got it maximized, and I got my chat window. Wow. That hardly ever happens. All right, hey everybody. So when we used to meet face to face for the pit crew, we'd have our interviews. We'd do 3 or 4 of them in different rooms in the church that we met in, and then afterwards we'd all get together and we'd talk about interviewing and specific things that came up in those interviews that we'd done that day that applied to everybody, but also answered questions, and usually there were quite a few questions. So when we became virtual, Walt and I got together and made that much more formal, and we put together these 13 sessions, all things interviewing, plus a couple of other topics to help accelerate your finding a new job. And so here's the list of all 13. These are available on Jeff's YouTube channel. And let me do one more thing here. I did have my chat window, but now I can't see everybody's face. There we go. And today we're on session number 9, which is demonstrating enthusiasm. There we go. Demonstrating enthusiasm, and we've added a new topic. If you've been with us, this is our 3rd round of going through all 13, and so session 9 of round 3. This is a new topic that we haven't covered in the past, which is changing careers or industry. So it occurred to us after we'd given this a couple of times that a lot of people are in this situation, where they need to change careers because of COVID, or they may want to change careers, or they may want to change industries because, when I worked in the telecommunications business, Dallas is a center for telecom. But, if I'd moved for whatever reason to some other town, I might have been forced to change industry. So we're going to cover, actually, Walt's going to cover in quite a bit of detail, the extra things you need to consider as you approach your job search, changing careers or industry. So I'm excited to hear all that, and I think it'll be very beneficial to the job search community. I'm having trouble with my mouse, guys. Here we go. All right. So a little bit more, if you look at this, and this is the way Walt and I think about it, we've done 5 sessions on preparing to interview. We're going to do 5 sessions on effective interviewing. Next week is building rapport. And then we go into some special topics for the last 3 sessions that build on all the previous learning. And that'll take us all the way to March 30th. Okay, so the sequence will end in March 30th, the 13 sessions, and then there'll be a month, 4 or 5 weeks perhaps, of special speakers, and then we'll start over again. Okay, so to get started, I've got a poll here. We encourage you to be interactive as much as possible. And one of the things I really miss when we used to do this face-to-face was it was very interactive with the group that was there. There'd be 30 or 40 people there. So if you have a question that comes to mind, please put it in the chat window, and I'll be watching it, and we'll certainly pause at certain times to answer your questions. So here's our first poll. You guys are already working on it. Thanks for that. So what % of the hiring decision is based upon enthusiasm and interest in the job and company? So what is your estimate of the % of the hiring decision that's based on your enthusiasm? All right, I'll give it another 15 seconds.
For those on Facebook, you can just, in the comment field, just put in A, B, C, or D, or E, A, B, C, D, E.
Mm, 35 out of 43, well, pretty good. All right, I think we're gonna get a screen capture of that. So let's see, the winner here is greater than 80%, closely followed by 60 to 70%. So it's clear that the majority of the decision is based upon enthusiasm and interest. And so, well, that's good to hear because that's what we're going to talk about today. Let me close that. And thanks everybody for your participation. And I encourage you to ask questions. As I mentioned, just put them into the chat window, and I'll be taking a look every now and then, and we'll pause at the end of my 7 slides here. We'll pause for sure and take your questions. So put them out there when they occur to you. All right, still having trouble. Here we go. There we go. Okay. All right, let's define enthusiasm, and then I want to compare and contrast it with rapport. Okay, now they're connected, and being enthusiastic helps you build rapport, but enthusiasm is really about us, showing interest in the things that we do and the pleasure we get from doing them. Okay, so having an active and motivated attitude instead of a passive one. So I make things happen as opposed to things happening to me. Enthusiasm means having a good attitude and receiving satisfaction from getting things done and pursuing our dreams. Okay, so that's enthusiasm. Now, rapport is more about building a connection or a relationship with someone else. And next week, we'll be talking about ways in particular to help build rapport, but it's a sense that you get between two people that you begin to like them, you trust them, and they trust you. You understand their point of view. I think that next to the last sentence there, or the third line up, it's the bond that forms when we discover that we share one another's values and priorities in life. Okay, so that's what rapport is building, is making a connection with people. Now today, we're focusing on enthusiasm. Next week, rapport. Okay, I have just a handful of slides here, and we're going to talk about demonstrating enthusiasm. And I'm also going to interject in here some comments about enthusiasm for introverts. And I have one slide in particular on it. It's kind of anticlimactic, though. You know, it just kind of summarizes what I'm going to tell you as we go along. But I'm borderline introvert, extrovert. I'm kind of right in the middle. I'd say when I was younger and when I was growing up, I was definitely stronger introvert than I am now, but I understand the challenges of being an introvert. I'm still a very reserved person. That's my sixth Clifton strength, is a responsibility, but really what that means is I'm a very reserved person. They call it responsibility, and it includes some other things, but part of being that, having that strength is I'm kind of reserved. So here's what we're going to talk about today to demonstrate enthusiasm. You're going to prepare, and we'll talk about what that means. You're going to use your words. We'll talk about using the right words. You're going to use a positive outlook, and I'll talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to talk some more, I think in session 12 or session 13, about having confidence. But you want to use your positive outlook, and obviously being in job search can be kind of a bummer, but having a positive outlook is going to be important. You want to demonstrate it by the things you do, your demeanor, and your interview etiquette. And then finally, we'll summarize, as I mentioned, enthusiasm for introverts. Anything coming up on the chat window? I see a few things go by there. Oh yeah, I forgot. If you are a first timer to this meeting, this group, the interview Wednesdays, please put that in the chat window. I saw a few unfamiliar names and I saw quite a few familiar names. So if you're a first timer, please identify yourself, and I'll encourage the people who come on a regular basis to reach out to them and welcome them to the meeting. So, ways you can prepare to demonstrate enthusiasm. And enthusiasm and interest are kind of two sides of the same coin. So you want to demonstrate your interest, demonstrate your enthusiasm by doing some preparation and investing in your preparation. And so before we kind of did this series, we would talk a lot. We would come up pretty often in our pit crew meetings. What do you do with your cover letter? Do you make a cover letter? Do you send a cover letter? Who reads cover letters? And there's a lot of opinions on cover letters, and a lot of recruiters do not read them. But I think it's a very valuable exercise to make a cover letter, and you can choose not to send it if you want to, but you've made it, and bring it with you to the interview. Okay, so it demonstrates that you've done some analysis up front of what's in the job description and how you match up to it. And that by itself, just doing that work and prioritizing it and summarizing it, making it focused and relevant, is a very valuable exercise that will help you interview, but will also, make an impression upon the interviewer when you show up. And in the virtual world, you're going to say, I'll cover this in another slide, but you're going to say, here I go, I've got this analysis of the job description that I did. That's some work product that you did in preparation for this interview. Now, what kind of message does that send to the interviewer? That sends a message that you're invested. You've done some work here. You've got a written document. You want to also customize your resume. And what does that mean? That means, at the least, you want to use their language and prioritize, put at the top of your bullet list or your description of your previous work, things that they're interested in, things that appear on the job description. So you want to make it easy for them to find those things. And we have a whole session on analyzing job descriptions that you want to take a look at, and how to separate it into different categories. But so that's what it means to customize a resume. You may change your introductory paragraph to focus on the things they've asked for. This is funny. I had one job description that I applied for. They use this word. We're looking for a seasoned executive. Now, I would never call myself a seasoned executive. That's sounds like an old guy, which, by the way, I was. But that's what I used on the resume. I'm a seasoned executive. So there you go. That's what it means by use the words that they use. Okay. And the different companies have slightly different names for different roles. So you may have been called project manager 3 at your last job, and that's what's on your resume. But I don't think it's irresponsible, or if they say senior project manager, you just change the title on your resume to match what they're looking for. Now, when you fill out the application, you may want to put what your exact title was, so it matches up with what the company says. But on your resume, use their words, use their language. Okay, do your research. Do your research. So you want to be prepared. You do your research about its products, the company's business environment, their competitors, and their regulatory environment if it applies, who you will be interviewing with, do some research about them. I think it's always helpful to go on LinkedIn and find people who may have had the same role, but certainly people who have worked at the company, and see what their background is. And the more focused you can get down to the department you were in, for instance, you can learn quite a bit just by looking at the profiles of people who used to work there or still do work there. So that's the kind of in-depth research. You may want to look at whatever videos they put out. And a lot of companies in their investor relations or in their outreach to their customers will prepare videos. Watch those videos. Go on YouTube and see what you can find. And if you have time, it's worthwhile to read their financial statements if they're a public company, because there's often a lot of good information about their environment and their goals and their competitors and how they're doing against the competitors. So those are all things you can do in advance and demonstrate how interested you are and enthusiastic you are about the role. Enthusiastic enough to do that kind of research. Informational interviews are also a good thing. We're going to talk about that in an upcoming session. So that's a really great way to learn things that may be so fresh that they're not actually in any of those documents or in any of the videos that you might find. It's a good way to get insight. You may find someone who will share with you challenges that aren't publicly known or situations that the company is facing that, again, are new and not generally known. So you may know things that the typical candidate does not know through your informational interviews. And that takes a pretty good investment. So, having those kinds of contacts, developing those kinds of contacts says a lot about how interested you are in coming to work for that company. Okay, so you want to have a list of questions prepared in advance. So based on your research, some questions may come up. At least 10 prioritized questions. Now, when you go into an interview, you don't always know how much time you're going to have to ask questions. If it's only a 30-minute interview, you probably only get 2 or 3 questions. If it's longer, then, if it's an hour, then you probably have a chance to get almost everything you'd like to ask. But have a prioritized list, and when you get the opportunity to ask some questions, you can start going down the list from most important to you to least important. And some of them may, just come up in the course of the interview. Now you are going, if you're new to our sessions and you haven't seen our opening and closing session, I think it's session number 6, openings and closings. We talk about making an opening statement and also about asking questions right after your opening statement. So you want to prepare in advance what questions you want to ask. Like 3 or 4 minutes into the interview, you're going to start asking questions about their most important priorities and what's important to them, and maybe what it was about your background that interested them the most. You watch that session, but be prepared, be purposeful. Think about those questions that you want to ask right up front to find out what the priorities are for this position. That will inform the rest of your interview. You'll do much better in your interview with that information gleaned at the beginning of the interview, not at the end. Don't wait to ask questions at the end of the interview. Bring some work product. If you have work product, this is a great way to find a voice, to find something that you're intimately familiar with and can speak to and are proud of. But it also gives you an opportunity to show off what you've done in the past. Now, you may not have generated work product in your role before. You may like data sheets or outgoing or reports. Some of that information may be confidential. If you do your cover letter, then that's work product. I wouldn't call it work product. I'd call it an analysis of the job description, but that's some work that you did. You can bring that with you. But if you have work product, I would bring some along. If you're in a creative area, then you have a portfolio. If you have I've had people, sometimes you may have done a report, you may be very proud of that report. It may be very impactful to your work. You may want to go back to your employer and ask permission to use that. And I think if it's kind of a few years old, no longer considered confidential information, you're likely to get that permission. I've known some people who negotiated that kind of stuff as they were going out the door. Most people probably don't think that far ahead, but you can go back, I think, and see if they'll release it or let you use it for the purposes of finding a new position. And of course, if they say no, then you know that you should stay away from using that information and maybe generate some on your own. You could also do a 30, 60, 90-day plan, but not just a plan to get acclimated, a plan of what you're going to achieve in those 30, 60, or 90 days, an action plan. And to some extent, that's a promise that you're going to be able to do that. And you may not be fully prepared to make those kinds of promises, but I think, the interviewers are going to realize, that this is just an effort, getting started, a first effort, let's call it. But you've done some thinking about it and you're prepared to talk about it. So that is all the ways. And then there's probably some others. Walt's going to give his perspective to prepare to demonstrate enthusiasm. Let's go on to next, using your words to demonstrate enthusiasm. So in that opening and closing session 6, we also talk about having a statement of enthusiasm. There you go. And the way I talk about it, it's a part of your motivation story, why you're motivated to do for that position. Okay, why you're motivated for that position. So there's 3 parts to your motivation story. There's why this job, why this company, and why now. So I suggest in your greeting right up front, almost the very first thing that comes out of your mouth during the interview is you have your statement of enthusiasm, and it addresses why this job, why you're interested in this job. And then when you make your opening statement, the answer to the tell me about yourself question, you expand upon why you're interested in the company, that's in your opening statement, your motivation based on your research, and then also why now. Okay, so that helps explain why it's come at now. Now that may be particularly important if you're already employed and why you're considering changing, but it's also a good opportunity if you have a simple explanation, just to say that you're out of work, you're in job transition. But that answers the 3 parts of the motivation question in the first 3 minutes of the interview, and then the interviewer doesn't have to wonder about it. All right, one more time. Giving up on the mouse. Approach the interview with curiosity. So this is a really great way to demonstrate enthusiasm, is to ask questions. I'm curious to know or hear or learn or understand. I was wondering how you did this or that. I was wondering about that. I was wondering because. See, these are all good phrases to use. I find it interesting that, or I found it interesting that. So this is a good response to, what do you know about company ABC? You might say, well, I did a little research and I found it interesting that, and say something that you found interesting. It's a good way to get a conversation started too, because they may respond with their perspective on what's most interesting about the company's mission statement or values or business approach, et cetera, et cetera. So curiosity and expressing those, using those words that I'm curious to know, I think can be particularly effective way to demonstrate enthusiasm, and also a good way to build rapport. Now, I told you I was giving up on the mouse. Okay, positivity talk. Okay, so this is I wouldn't have thought of this unless I'd seen it happen in the pit crew. And sometimes we'll ask a candidate a question, and they'll say, wow, this is going to be fun. And then they start to tell one of their star stories. That is very impactful. I found it very impactful that that's a very enthusiastic statement. And so one of the other ones that someone used was, tell me about a time, something happened, and they go, something positive happened, and they say, okay, well, I got quite a few to pick from. Let me think for a moment. So that's a kind of positive phrases. I call those positivity phrases. Now, I have to say at this point, that you really can't fake being enthusiastic. So just saying the words is only part of the story. I mean, there has to be some emotion behind it. So these are effective ways to demonstrate how you're feeling. And that's what we're talking about today. Hopefully you are enthusiastic and you are interested and you are curious. And so, let it go. Ask those questions. Demonstrate your enthusiasm. Use positive talk and think about what positive words you're going to use to make an impact, and go from there. Okay, empathy. Empathy is a really good way also to show enthusiasm. And so it's kind of the opposite of disappointment, the opposite of bitterness. And so this usually comes up when you get an opportunity to say why you were in job search mode and you can't, what happened? Well, a couple of phrases you might want to use is, I can't say enough about how well I was treated at your previous employer. I just can't say enough. And I received a generous severance package. Instead of saying I received a severance package, say I received a generous severance package. If it's true, take those opportunities to show empathy for your previous employer in particular, and that helps show you have a positive attitude about what happened to you. Nobody wants to hire somebody who's hung up on what happened to them, how unfair it was or challenging it's been. That's not what they're looking for. They're looking for positive people who overcome, that experience, and they're moving forward. Okay, so again, some more on using a genuinely positive attitude to demonstrate our enthusiasm. And you need to, if you're still kind of upset or hurting or struggling, you need to, I think working with a coach is a great idea. Oftentimes when I coach people on why they left their last job, it was a bad situation. It was definitely a bad situation. And so, I tell them, write down all those feelings of negativity in a journal, and then burn the journal, and keep writing until you've written it out of you. Okay, so that you can approach your future opportunities without bringing that baggage along. And it may take a little bit of time, but you've got to work through it. It'll come through, no doubt. It'll come through in your interview, and you can see it when in the pit crew interviews when people aren't quite squared away with what's happened to them or how deep the struggle is at the time. You know, a little bit of desperation starts to show in there, and that you just cannot bring that to an interview. It just will not be effective. Okay, so the words and phrases you choose to use will give that away. So be purposeful in what you intend to say, and you know, say those positive things. So here's some examples. I hear this all the time. Unfortunately, the company had to lay me off. You know, who's that unfortunate for? Maybe it'd been unfortunate for you, but now we have this opportunity to have this conversation. I'm thinking, I don't know, that sounds pretty fortunate to me. If you're a good match and I got a problem to be solved, why is that unfortunate? So don't say that. Don't say unfortunately. The company needed to lay me off. Okay, now you've joined them in the decision, and and trust me, it was a painful decision. I forgot to mention, you know, when 2 of those 3 layoffs, I had the big team. I had 50, 60 people for me, working for me, and in my department, and we were developing new products. And when that recession came along, you know, those new products were the least important thing the company needed to do. The whole team, in both cases, the whole team was completely wiped out. I mean, laid off, completely laid off. So I did the laying off, and then I got laid off. So it was a tough decision, but I mean, what else could the company do during the time of economic stress? And so, you know, they needed to save the money that on that team, and that team in particular was, you know, not going to be a big part of their future anymore because things have changed. So shows that empathy. And this is a question. This was came up in the pit crew as well. I remembered it quite well. And so the question was, at the end of the interview, they're asking for feedback. Asking for feedback is really a good idea, except are there any areas that you have reservations regarding my qualifications that I can clear up for you? So there you go. Gonna fix me. Gonna correct me if I have any reservations. I can fix you. Okay, you're definitely broken. Don't say that. Don't say those kinds of things. Okay, this is what I mean about being purposeful. This is probably a very innocent statement, but it came across, you know, very poorly. And here's another good one. This is a good one. Is there anything that we discussed today that would cause you to hesitate in recommending me for the next step? Okay. Now you could say, is there anything that we discussed today that you're concerned about? You know, but asking people what they're concerned about, you may not get an answer, right? So you want to be kind of soft here. You're still asking for feedback. Instead of saying that you're concerned about my candidacy, you can say that would cause you to hesitate in recommending me for the next step. Here's a good one I like. How do I compare to the ideal candidate? Okay, so obviously, or maybe not so obviously, but it's a little subtle here. You'd like to be the ideal candidate. So how do you compare? Or how do I compare to top performers in this role? Because you want to be a top performer. So that's inserting a little positivity talk and a little influence into your motivation to become a top performer. So you're curious about what that takes. If I was a spectacular success in this role after 6 months, what would I have accomplished? That's a good question to ask as well. So you're going to be a spectacular performer. Let's find out what that takes. Okay. Demonstrate it with actions. Include that cover letter. Go ahead and put that cover letter in your application. It may not be read, but you did the work. You know, put it in there. Tailor your resume to the company's needs. Bring a notepad with you, your prioritized list of questions, your extra resumes, a copy of the job description, your cover letter if you sent one, and your work product. Bring all of that to the resume now. I mean, to the interview. Now, this was written, you know, primarily for face-to-face interviews, but it works in the video world as well. So when the interview gets started, you say, I just want to let you know, I have an extra copy of the resume. I have my analysis of the job description. I have some questions I'd like to ask if we have time. I have the cover letter and the information that I forwarded with you, and I've got some work product as well. So I have all of this stuff here. you're not going to say that. You just say, I have this, but the implication is you come well prepared to have a conversation about how you can help, how you can, because the hiring manager is rooting for you. The interviewers are rooting for you. Hiring people is tough work, okay? It's tough for the interviewers because they already have a full-time job doing whatever they need to do, and they also need to hire people. So they are very conscientious about selecting the people that they believe are going to be the right match. And so when you show up well prepared, it just reinforces that yes, you might be the right person. And so they're going to spend some time with you preparing as well. So pull all that, let them know, even in a video environment, that you have these things, within arm's reach. And this is your positive attitude. Be intentional about the questions you ask and the comments you make, okay? Be grateful for your experiences in the past, things you got a chance to achieve, and the opportunity to, talk about how you might be able to help this future company. Positive, curious, unstoppable. I might say persistent there, but persistent has a little bit of a negative connotation. So just be unstoppable, right? You're going to find out if this job's right for you, and then you're going to talk about how you're right for this company and this position. Listen intently, and even in the video world, you can lean in, and you can nod, and you can pause. Now, these are things that can't be faked. So when you're having a conversation with a friend, you'll do this, right? You'll lean in a little bit when you're interested. You'll nod to give affirmation of what they're saying. You may pause. There may be natural pauses in the conversation while you think, and pausing is a good idea to formulate the answers to the questions. So you can do all those things even in the video world, and they are effective, demonstrating enthusiasm. And then exercise your interview etiquette. Send your thank you notes, your follow-up. Walt will have more to say about this. So now let me talk to introverts. It's just one slide. So all of those things I just talked about, using the right words, getting prepared, asking good questions, are things you can do, okay? Now you may not be, I mentioned I'm a little reserved. You may not be emotive. You may not be outgoing, but you can do all the things I already talked about. And so let's just talk. I did a little research on this, and here's what I found out, okay? That the most common reason that people are perceived to lack enthusiasm, so perceived to lack enthusiasm, is they're not that interested in the job. They may be tired, they may be stressed, preoccupied. We had one guy show up at the pit crew after he had a little fender bender on his way there, so he was kind of distracted. They show up unprepared, or they're overconfident. They think they got the job in the bag, so they don't make any effort, and so they're perceived to lack enthusiasm. So that's the number one reason, okay? But the number two reason is they have a demeanor, okay, that is laid back or intense or quiet or contemplative or introverted, okay? And so they're perceived to lack enthusiasm because of something they can really do nothing about, okay? That's particularly unfair, but it's true, okay? And if you're one of these people, you may have gotten a sense that, that you were being misjudged, okay? So if you're that kind of person, an introvert, creating an extroverted or enthusiastic persona just may not be possible. I mean, I don't think you could fake it. You might try it, but I don't think it's going to work out for you, okay? So now what do? So you can acknowledge up front that this is the type of personality you have, okay? But you're not going to leave it at that, okay? You're gonna leave it with how your demeanor, whether you're intense or reserved or focused or shy, how that has, how it's been an asset. And I had a boss one time. I worked for this guy 3 different places, and he was a good boss, and he appreciated me, and I appreciated him. But one of my merit interviews, you know, he said, "Mark, you're very effective in your quiet sort of way." Okay, so that was me. I'm you know, reserved. I don't seek the limelight. I don't, you know, brag. I'm not boisterous. I don't tell jokes. I can't tell a joke to save my life. So, but I was effective, and so he acknowledged that, and so you need to acknowledge it as well. You know, so you know, that's the way I am. It makes me effective because, and tell them why. And so right up front, you've said, no, you're not going to do the usual things that outgoing people do, but you did your preparation. You're curious. You've asked, you know, you're going to ask good questions. You're going to use words that demonstrate your interest and your enthusiasm to substitute for the big personality that, you know, extroverts bring to the table. So there's a balance here, because most of the time you want to talk about how you can help, what you can do for them. But if you're introverted, you need to spend a little bit of time talking about how appealing you find the job, how intriguing you find the work. So these are things that really talk about your motivation, but it's going to be helpful. And if you do a small amount of it, not a large amount of it, because most of the time you want to be focused on how you can help them. But you don't want them to think that you're not enthusiastic. Okay, address that. Any questions that I missed? And we'll switch over to Walt. I don't see any. Walt, you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Let's see here. For some reason or other, the sharing options doesn't want me to share. There we go. So, you know, we talked about enthusiasm, and Mark's covered it really pretty well in detail. And the first 6 sessions we talked about, the preparing for interviewing, and the next session even, all applicable to enthusiasm. The poll that we showed, that it's a huge amount of the decision to show our enthusiasm. But my question to myself is, wait a minute, I'm trying to figure out how to answer questions and what to say. How can I be enthusiastic? And I mean, if I'm not confident when I walk in, how can I be enthusiastic? So, well, you know, Mark gave you a lot of good information that basically is telling us we need to prepare some things so that when we go in, that preparation will allow us to be enthusiastic. Then we can be genuine with the enthusiasm as we get into the interview. So just a couple of definitions. If we have a feeling of energetic interest, then we are going to be demonstrating enthusiasm. So it comes from the feeling. Mark talked about how we think is how we're going to act and say. So if we're thinking energized, if we're thinking enthusiastic, then we'll be that way. Absorbing and controlling possession of the mind by interest and pursuit, a lively interest, some sort of interest. So for those of us that are not all that enthusiastic, we can certainly show our interest into the job and for the company. So Gordon Parks says, how do you get it? Well, you act it until you make it a habit. Now, some people live enthusiasm. They're that way all the time. Not too many people are that way. Dale Carnegie says, you know, act enthusiastic and you'll be enthusiastic. And I remember going to a seminar, a Dale Carnegie seminar years ago, and it was like 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock or so on Thursday nights. And when everybody got there after work, they were tired. And we had this little exercise where someone had to get up and lead on the group, and we would repeat, act enthusiastic and you be enthusiastic. We had to get louder. We had to get more rambunctious. We had to jump around and jump up and down on the floor. And after we finished all of that, we felt better. Okay. We felt we had a little bit of energy and stuff going. Well, that's okay. I don't know how long that lasts. And so enthusiasm's got to be genuine and serious, not a fake it till you make it situation. All right. Maybe you've heard of Moravian's communication theory. About 7% of message are the words. All right. That's an email. That's the words. just the words itself. 33% of the message is the words that are said, and then 55% is the rest. It's all the context. But remember, and some people don't realize this, remember that this is about feelings and attitudes that we're talking about communication, not necessarily knowledge, not necessarily information. We want to communicate that feeling and attitude that we have. And if we have the right feelings and we have the right attitudes, then it's going to be natural and it'll come out that way. And that's how you build rapport, and that's how you build a connection. Here's some words that you might want to choose. You know, Mark talked about what kind of words can we say. So here's some. All we got to do is say them like we mean them. One of the things I fear sometimes is we say, you know, here's your list of questions. And we go down and we ask the questions deadpan. You know, it's like old Jackie Vernon says, here I am driving down the road. Here I am picking up a hitchhiker. Here I am watching the hitchhiker steal my car. Here I am hitchhiking. I mean, you know, it's just deadpan all the way through. So it's the way we say them. And if you feel it, then you'll show it and you'll demonstrate it. So what are we enthusiastic about? There's 3 pillars: who we are, what we do, and how we help. And they're particularly about the job in the company. So I'm repeating what Mark's already said. That enthusiasm about the job and enthusiasm about the company are strong differentiators in being able to have the preparation and the study, the research done so that we can go in there and really talk about this job and why it energizes us in this company and why we wouldn't want to work here. We got to be able to answer those 2 questions. So have your genuine positive attitude. You can boost our energy level. So, and that shows that we're looking forward to talking with them and excited to be there. And that's why one of the parts of our statement of enthusiasm is I'm excited to be here. Okay. Very genuine, very authentic. Be sure we're on time, smile. Smiling has so much to do with building rapport and a connection and showing that we're personable and demonstrating our enthusiasm. Good posture is going to make sense. And then we talked about the statement of enthusiasm at the beginning. Telling star stories with passion and energy. So if you haven't heard our star stories things, I think it's session 3 or something. Most people are familiar with situation, task, action, result, but it's the way you tell it. Okay, it's the way you tell it. Mark was telling about a time, you know, when somebody told a story, or was asked to tell a story, and then he made a comment about it. And even a year plus ago, when I was interviewing a person on the pit crew, and we asked him to tell us something, he said, "Oh, that was a fun one." And that stuck out. So everybody on the 3 panelists said that was the most significant thing they remembered in the whole interview was that. And then he told the story, demonstrating how much fun it was as he told the story. Very, very different than most people. So ask questions. I will be judged by our questions, but if we ask questions and we ask them in the right way, we don't want to just go in there and say, what keeps you up at night? Throw that one out. Please don't ask that one. So everybody uses that. Change the words to something else. And say, what are the challenging situations that you have today? And if you ask it in an, I am interested in the response, I'm not just asking you a question, be quite different and will show your enthusiasm. So when something sounds interesting, say so. Tell them that it's interesting. Very strong differentiator. Who compliments an interviewer in an interview? Almost no one. No one. What stands out to us is unique and why we want to work for them and say, all right, you have this kind of style, you are this kind of person, that stands out to us as something, and that's why we want to come work here. All right. It's you that's one of the reasons that I want to come work for this company. Very, very strong. Almost no one does anything like that. So when our responses, I hear this many, many times, and it's called that's a good question. That's a good question response means I don't have an answer yet. I must talk because silence is killing me. So I'm going to say that's a good question to give me time to think. Well, you know, it'd be great if we could prepare all the answers to our questions, but there's 2 ways to prepare. All right. We can prepare in advance to answer some of the questions, right? We can answer, tell me about yourself. And we can tell some stories and things like that. But there's another time that we prepare, and it's called in the middle of the interview when they ask us a question we don't know the answer to. We pause and prepare an answer during the pause and then deliver the response. And so we can do it real time just as well. let the pause work for us, not against us. And as part of the close, we can say, I think you're on the right track with the questions you ask. And that's got to be genuine, of course. Everything has to be genuine, but it'd be nice to compliment that interview with something about what they did, what they said. I'm energized by your questions today. So I believe you're getting the right information to make a hiring decision. Who speaks like that as a candidate to an interviewer? Close the sale, which most people do not do. I've seen in the practice very few people. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Let me get out of Dodge. So we want to close. And so there's things about the closes, the openings and closes and things that there are also in other sessions that we have. So, but it demonstrates our confidence. Plus, we might not start out so well, but if we got a strong finish, we can recover. But a weak finish is going to be poor. It's much, much harder to get a job with a weak finish than it is a strong finish. And then follow up. Everybody knows about following up, but follow up a little bit differently, not just what's the status of your decision on hiring. How many interviewers, hiring managers have time to tell everybody what the status is? Something a little different than that. So interviewers want people who are passionate, interesting, hardworking, and be a good ambassador for the company. You'll be a good representative. You're not a high risk, you're low risk, because most interviewers are looking for hiring people where they won't have a lot of risk in hiring that person. Would you agree that enthusiasm actually draws people to us? We appear, fun, approachable, and it's contagious. When you're around that, you kind of pick it up yourself. And if we are enthusiastic and interested, the interviewer also probably through contagious enthusiasm, be the same way and feel that way about us. So where are we? We got to do some research and preparation. Mark's hit that hard. So we got to prepare our content to the degree. We want to practice that preparation, which Mark was talking about demonstrating. We gain skills and confidence through that. And when we gain the confidence, we can now show our energy, enthusiasm, and our interest in the job. And that will help us get the job. Any questions before we talk about a little bit on changing careers? Any questions on enthusiasm?
Yeah, well, I have a question. So when you say follow up differently, can you give me some examples, please?
Certainly.
Please ask for some examples.
Certainly. So suppose you're going to follow up and in the interview, in the closing, you say, if I have questions, who would I ask? Which is something you want to do so that you can remain top of mind. So you want to send an email. So in there, you might say, so-and-so said, I just want to know how much I enjoyed speaking with you and talking with you about this particular job. I'm still very interested in the job. And I really enjoyed the part about whatever, some compliment you could give them in that sentence, and said, you mentioned that I could send a question to you. And so I do have a question about this. And so whatever you just complimented them about and had a discussion about, then you have a follow-up question to answer that. Okay. So it's not just, here's my question, bullet, bullet, bullet. Here's my 3 questions. Make sense?
Hi, this is Christina. I have a real quick question. I posted it in there in the chat box. Is there too much enthusiasm?
Yeah, you can overdo it. All right. If it's genuine though, and you're just genuinely an enthusiastic person, be yourself. All right. I wouldn't worry about it. But if you're trying to be enthusiastic, we're off track.
Okay. So the key is just to be like like you were saying, your natural happiness, and not somebody who's ready to dance on the table.
Well, I'll say a little more about it. Let's say that I'm going to an interview and I'm a little fearful. Well, music can help change your mood and attitude. And so there's a song, I'm gonna date myself, there's ABBA, and it's called Take a Chance on Me. And as I'm listening to that song, my foot starts tapping. My energy level goes up, the music kind of changes. I'm still myself. I'm not faking anything, but I become energized. I get up. Then I start thinking I look forward to having a conversation with this person in the interview. I'm not afraid. I look forward to finding out information, sharing things. And that fear goes away with that preparation and practice, right? With anything you practice, you get better, right? So when you do that, I think you're going to walk in very, very well, still be energetic, still be yourself, but you've kind of helped yourself, boost yourself up a little bit with something else to help you do that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So Walt, I'm posting up, let's see if it comes through. Yeah. So this is a book about power talking, about using positive phrases. And it's an old book. It was written in 1991. And I took a course in this, sponsored by my work. And it's still available on Half Price Books and Amazon. But take a look at that. Something like that can really help you in general, you know, with positive phrases and phrasing your statements in a positive way. Thanks.
Anything else before we jump into the last topic that I want to review quickly with you? And all of a sudden, my window disappeared. Where did it go? All right. So I'll have a poll for you right quick. So we'll cover this fairly quickly. Are you considering changing jobs and/or industries? Another 10 seconds. Okay. So results that we're showing here is that some of you say, well, maybe I should. Almost 20%. Yes, it's quite a few, 75%. And then say, no, I don't think I've got my path already mapped out with what I'm doing. Okay, interesting. Thank you for participating in that. So let me ask you another question then. For those of you that are considering it or looking at it, which path are you really considering? You just want to change jobs? You just want to change industries? Is it in the same industry or the same job in another industry? Or a different job and a different industry? So that's the tougher one, changing the job and the industry. Another 10 or 15 seconds. Okay. So answers are, some are looking, they've got the path mapped out. It's actually a smaller percentage, kind of surprising. Others are, yeah, I'm gonna have to change industries. I may be in oil and gas. I may be in hospitality. I may be in some industries that are having a really tough time now. So I really need to look at another industry. Others are saying, yeah, I want to stay in the same industry, but 15% are saying I'm considering a different job. And then 38% of you are looking at, I need a different job and in a different industry. So we're going to talk about these things as we go forward. So thank you for participating in that and giving us some feedback and information. There's a morning consult study by Amazon that said 61% of the US job seekers unemployed and employed have looked for a job in a new industry. And 50% of American surveys who are looking for a new job are doing so because of the pandemic. And so a lot of us are in a situation of changing jobs. But the good news is people are hiring. It might be a little harder, it seems like, but it's still happening. So here's some thoughts. Mark and I sat down and said, we kind of brainstormed this thing. And first words out of Mark was get a coach. And so this is pretty important because your job to find a job in a different job or different industry or both is more involved in research, in preparation, in work in order to achieve that goal. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that to help you with that. But it's going to be more difficult. There's going to be more ups and downs. It's going to be a little bit harder. So we have to set a positive attitude towards doing this. We need to look at, and my suggestion is, are you going away from something or going towards something? And if you see yourself as going towards something, that's going to show up a lot better in your interviews and your conversations with people than those with I'm leaving something. We want to be moving towards a general goal of what we want to do. And if we do decide to do that, we got to visualize a couple of things. What does it look like right now, given my circumstances? What would that picture be? What goal would I have for myself? And this is the situation. And then another one is, man, if I could just do anything I wanted to do in any industry, in any job, what would that look like? So we have to begin with the end in mind, as Covey would say in his 7 Habits. What does that picture look like to us? If we don't know where we're going, how are we going to figure out how to get there? So we have to have some picture of what that end result is going to be. So there's 3 factors that I suggest that we think about if you're going to transition into a new field. What's your risk tolerance? Are you very risky? Because some of this is going to be a little bit risky to you when you move into something, a new one. You're going to have some uncertainty. What's your financial cushion? And do we really have the urge to move into a new field and we're ready to face the obstacles? Do we know there's going to be some? And so when they occur, it's okay. I know there's going to be some work to do. Almost all of our life is resolving obstacles. It's a daily job in our regular jobs, to do that. But are you willing to do that in the job search mode? Am I committed to a steady march and staying with the process? And here's a kicker. Recruiters don't feel like you're going to have great success when you change jobs or careers. Since they say that's going to be a low percentage of success, they usually don't want to work with people who are doing that. So recruiters don't help us very much. Now, that's not saying it for everyone, but in general, that's probably going to be the outlook that recruiters have. So the ideal job fits 3 factors: excellence, excitement, and experience. And so excellence is, what do we do with excellence? What are we really good at? What is our expertise? What can I do in my sleep? All right. How about excitement? Do you get energized by your job? Do you get energized by the value that job brings to the company? Do you like closing a sale? Do you like turning a customer around? Do you like producing a product? Do you like reducing defects with quality? I mean, that's the reason you go to work, is to have those kinds of results. And then your experience. So what have you done in the marketplace that they value and will pay you to do? So I may want to be an airline pilot, but right now I think it's going to be kind of hard to get that job. All right. They're not really willing to hire me and not really willing to pay me for doing that, even though I have them. So you have to look back at your track record and say, what is it that I can do, have done, that people would buy? That'll help us decide. So how to decide whether you want to change your career path. Here's a few steps. Perform your self-evaluation. Is it right for me now at this time? Is it the right answer? Sometimes you look at that and it's a very easy question. You say, yeah, I'm in oil and gas. It's not going to go anywhere. I've got to do something different. It's easy to answer that question. Can I weather the expected challenges? Is it worth those challenges? All right. Is it worth going through this process? It's kind of, I don't know everything about it. I'm going to give you some tips and tools to try to help you figure that out. But, you know, I know it's going to be different than I would normally be with. I'm a little uncomfortable with that, but are we ready for that? So look at yourself. What skills do you have? Soft, hard? What are you interested in building? What skills would you like to have so you can fill the gap? And what kind of things do you enjoy doing the most? So now we evaluate whether the career would align with our skills, interests, and values. So you research the jobs, industries, and the careers. All right. If you're changing an industry, you can choose a sector that's aligned to your current industry. Transportation is a big industry, but there's different types of transportation that's available. So it might be something in the transportation world, but maybe you are in one, and then you could still go be in another. So it's not quite a hard change. And when you look at jobs, well, what type of jobs would you like to do? So you got to search for those type of jobs. What's the language that they use to describe the challenges, wants, needs, and objectives? Once we have done this research and say, okay, I know myself, I've looked at industries, I've looked at the kind of jobs, now I need to decide, is this what I really want to do? So going through this process will help you make that decision. Now that you've made the decision, what do I do next? Okay, make an action plan. What are things that you need to accomplish in order to achieve your objective? All right. We ought to rebrand ourselves. We got to start over because we're not the same brand that we had before. And what does that really mean? So the suggestion is we lead with the story, not the history, because the history puts us in another category. So we start with a different story. So what does that story look like? So you answer these kind of questions. Where have we come from? Where are the positive elements that brought us here? What's the reason we have for moving into this field? What are we working on in order to make the shift? How do we see what we have to offer? All right. And what do people come to help you? Where's the people, they come to say, you're like, I need help with why I left my last job. I need to go talk to Mark Mcdonald. He can help me with that. So identify those people. That'll help you. And this slide really has the same thing to lead with our story. I just didn't have enough room on the slides to put the bullets. But the next thing on B is you want to try a skills-based or functional resume. This is where a coach can help you. I know Carol Burkell does resume coaching on Thursdays at 1 o'clock. And tomorrow she'll be on. I think she'll be on. She might have a guest speaker. But nonetheless, instead of job titles and headlines, what are the most relevant skill sets and talents that you have that fit what you're looking for? Rather than task and responsibilities, show your key accomplishments that showcase the skills, all right? Well, we talk about doing that in resumes anyway, right? Show your accomplishment in your bullets. It's not, I led a group of 50 people. It's, I helped turn the sales from a 20% success rate on leads to a 30% success rate on leads and sales. And then you can add some work history at the end, but it still needs to be relevant to the job and the industry that you're looking for. Now we got to start acting like a duck. All right. It means if I'm moving into a new job, then I have to start acting like I am that job, done that job. And this is the way I present myself. All right. So I've got the skills that I can apply for the work that I'm looking to do. So when you're looking at me and I'm talking to you, you're not seeing me what I used to be. You're seeing me what I am, what I'm heading towards. So we want to hang out in the pond. So find the people in the kind of role, industry, job you're looking for and start hanging out with them. All right. If you want to move into the project management role, you've probably done some project management, but maybe you need to let me look at my PMI certification. There's a chapter here. Let me start working with these people. There's probably some groups that get together and meet. Let me start hanging out with those people. But we also have to plan to prepare questions about why did you decide to change career? Why are you qualified for this position? What makes you the best person? How do you handle learning? What experience do you have with this? So we still have to do the same things in any interview that we've always had to do, which was say, I am this, I do this, and I help this. That's all relevant to that job in that industry. We have to mobilize our network, surround ourselves with the people who, know what we're about. We understand the benefits and challenges within that industry, connect us with possible clients of other like-minded, all right? Live and breathe our job and industry. Try to get some hands-on experience in the field. It could be a good stepping stone. Maybe you can volunteer in an area, perhaps intern. What educational resources might you use to get up to speed? What new skills do I need to develop, and how can I develop those things and show that I have those things? Then we got to track our progress. This is good with any plan, is to have some benchmarks and say, here's the things I want to accomplish. And now as I go through them, tracking, that gives you some confidence and good feeling that you are on your way and making progress. Meaning the benchmarks is going to tell you and give you some confidence that I am getting there, I am making progress, I'm doing what I should be doing. It's important to help you stay the march. So in summary, as long as they're really curious and hungry and embrace new challenges, the value will always evolve with you, all right? If we can adapt quickly, think creative, and possess the wherewithal to see the process through, that's going to lead us towards success. That's true for anything you do, not just in job search and changing jobs or industries or both. As you look forward and say, hey, today's world is adapt quickly. If there was ever a time we have to adapt, it's now. Change occurs so rapidly today. Change 50 years ago was every 5 years. Today, it's every day or so. It's so rapid, it's so quick. But to be able to adapt to that and think creatively. When we embark on that journey, we'll grow no matter what happens. You will learn, you will have things of value that you can use throughout the rest of your life. It may not be what you expected. We may have some ups and downs in the middle of it. That if we challenge ourselves to learn those things, put ourselves out there, we're going to find something that we do that really is fulfilling to us. There's a couple of websites that you can do some research on for industries and jobs. This HTTPS website right here, www.bls.gov, has some tables. And so some of these tables, for example, employment by major occupational groups and projected detailed occupation. So these are different jobs, fastest declining, fastest, most job growth. So I can look up this, what kind of jobs are growing, what kind of jobs are declining, some research that you can do to kind of get some information from the Bureau of Labor Statistics that might help you decide on the type of job. And then there's some industries as well. And so I have tables, what's the employment by means of output, industry fastest growing, most declining, wage and salary. So it's a good information to help you find out what's going on in these industries today. Some are pretty obvious. Target just announced a 20% growth in profitability in their history. And so Zoom, I think, is doing pretty well today. So there's things that are going on, but like cybersecurity might be a new field for somebody. We're gonna need a lot of people in cybersecurity. That's going to hang on for quite a while, and that's going to permeate all different types of industries, just like information technology. Anyway, there's some tips or some places that you might want to find out some information to help you. Any questions?
Keisha had a question. Why do recruiters not work with candidates changing jobs or careers?
Okay, Mark, I kind of gave some comments on that. Would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, well, we tried to, in Walt's presentation, give you a fairly balanced perspective on the challenges involved, but it's just a more difficult placement. That's pretty straightforward. If you don't have experience in the same industry as the client, their client would be the hiring company, they may find, they've had a little luck with that, and so they're just not interested. Okay. Now, this is an issue you're going to face even if you do get someone interested, right? Because when you go, let's say you do get selected for an interview, they must have seen something in your resume that they saw very valuable, and it wasn't your previous work history necessarily. But it's still going to be up to you to convince them that your previous work history is a good indicator of what you're going to be able to do for them. And you're going to have to use their language, because just telling them what you did in the healthcare industry, they are likely not going to be able to translate that into transportation, for instance. You're going to have to use their words. I think perhaps if you took that same approach to a recruiter, and you talked, you were the duck in the pond, you talked like you had worked in the transportation industry, they may go ahead and accept you and take you forward. But the probabilities are they're going to see that as a bigger hill to climb. You're not a most placeable candidate or most valuable candidate. And so you'll kind of get the cold shoulder from them.
Right on, Mark. I mean, if you present yourself in the new job and you present yourself in the new industry as the new job in the new industry, then you can get around that. But if you show that you have a different history and that you're changing and it's not consistent, then you're going to have some difficulty with it. So the idea is, how do you present yourself in a way to recruiters that they're not seeing you as, they're looking for diamonds and you're a pink diamond, okay? And they don't want a pink diamond. They want a real, a white diamond. So anything that's different is harder to work with, harder to have success with. So we present what matches that job in that industry. That'll solve that problem.
And it also, I think, depends a little bit on what kind of recruiter you're dealing with. Is this an external recruiter? Is this a retained recruiter? Is this a recruiter inside of a company? So it's hard to build those relationships with recruiters to help you, get those interviews.
Coaches will help us do this. Recruiters don't help you find a job. They don't give you lots of advice on how to do your resume and things like that. Except for, is it Vandemutter? Is that his name, Jeff?
Kurt Vandemutter, yes.
Yeah, I mean, he's one recruiter that tells it from the recruiter side of the story, so he's the exception. Tony DeChera, he's another one that might qualify as an exception too.
Right.
Other questions?
Were there any other questions? I don't see anything else new. Fantastic session. You have one more slide you want to show?
Practice.
There we go.
Oh,
this one's missing the slide too. Okay.
Well, I guess we didn't let Walt know that his picture was missing.
I'm getting this message. I've been fired.
That's how we're letting you know.
Right. So why'd you leave your last job? They moved and didn't let me know.
They didn't tell me.
On a need-to-know basis, huh?
I was no longer in the phone directory. I don't know what happened.
So yes, don't wait. In fact, I know somebody during this presentation reached out to me. How can I just have an interview scheduled for Friday? How can I quickly get an interview with the pit crew? So I gave Mark's email address, and hopefully maybe you can try to get something scheduled tomorrow. So don't wait. Go ahead and get that information out there right now so you're ready to go.
Yeah, and I think it's particularly important to come to practice when you're changing careers or changing industries, okay? Because you can come and practice, telling your story and see how the interviewers react to that and give you some advice to tune it up or to focus on certain areas that you may have overlooked. So practice early and practice often, and if there's a change that's going to make your job search a little longer, a little more strenuous, come and practice more often.
Right. Well, please, thank you for joining us today. Please join Career DFW and CareerUSA.org each week. Every Monday, we've got a new session on networking. Tuesdays, LinkedIn. Today's Wednesdays, we do interviewing. Thursdays, effective resumes. So all of those are at 1 o'clock. Lunch and learn. Bring your lunch, sit there and listen to us and learn something. And then every Friday morning, the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. Tomorrow, for Effective Resume Thursdays, we'll be sharing resume tips and tricks. Also, we'll be giving away a month's free use of unlimited use of jobscan.co, a way for you to compare your resume to a job description. This Friday at the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group, Friday morning at 9:30, we're going to have open forum. You have questions about your job search, you can ask us and get opinions. And we also have, and this is a last minute edition, we're going to have a short little edition. A speaker is going to talk first for about 10 or 15 minutes about her personal board of directors, how she decided what to do, and would she take a job out of the city? Would she take a job, this kind of job? How she decided her strengths and her weaknesses, and then who's on her personal board of directors to sort of keep her focused and keep her in track. So I heard her talk on Monday, and she just sort of said this sort of offhandedly, and it was like, oh, this is perfect. So join us this Friday. It'll be a really fascinating little presentation. I know she's put together a couple of PowerPoint slides on how she's come up with her role and how she decides what it is she's going to do with her career. Next Monday for Networking Mondays, our second presentation, the speaker will be Kurt Vondermatter. He's an executive recruiter, retained executive recruiter. He's going to talk about the CEO, the coach, the friend, how to network with those people. So please join us next Monday at 1 o'clock. Next Tuesday for LinkedIn Tuesdays, Locke Alderson will be our speaker, talking about how to use LinkedIn for job hunting, strategies to get results. And then next Wednesday, we'll be on session number 10, building rapport, establishing chemistry with the interviewer. So please join us for those. This session has been recorded, as all of our sessions, most of our sessions are. It will be up on the Career DFW Facebook page, and it will be on the Career USA YouTube channel in a couple hours. It takes YouTube a couple hours to process the video. You'll be able to go back and watch it as often, as frequently, and as often as you'd like. Follow us on Facebook. If you do that, every time we go live, you'll get a little alert on your phone. If you follow us, if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, every time we post a video, you'll get an email saying we've just posted a new video. So please follow and subscribe to both. On the YouTube channel, it looks something like this. Be sure you've clicked on playlist, and then underneath where you see that green arrow, don't click on the video, but click underneath which says view full playlist, and up will come a list of the most recent video on top, and it should sort all the way down where you can go back and watch any one of these videos, if you need to go back and review something. If you're not receiving emails about our workshops, I put out 7 emails a week. Please join the Career USA mailing list. You can do so by sending an email to this email address listed right here. I will put that email address up here at the very end, the very last slide in just a second. So just please remember, Career DFW, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We have no full or part-time employees. Walt's a volunteer, Mark's a volunteer, I'm a volunteer. We're just here to help you land your next great opportunity. We want to teach you how to fish. We can't make you go and fish, but we can teach you the skills, and hopefully you'll learn some tricks and tips on how to make your job search go quicker and faster. We survive on donations. It pays for Zoom, it pays for the web names, it pays for the web hosting that we do. Please consider making a donation when you get your next job. So thank you very much for joining us today. There's that email address if you'd like to join the Career USA mailing list if you're not getting emails from us, or you don't see it on another list. So Mark and Walt, thank you very much. And everybody else, hopefully we'll see you later in the week.
Thank you, guys. Have a good afternoon.